In this video, we are going to review some factoring. So first thing is that we have our quadratic equation in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. So a will always be with your x squared term, b will always be with your x term, and your c is your constant, which means it has no variable with it. So what I like you to do is to ask yourself these two questions each time you go to factor. The first question, is there a number other than 1 in front of A? If so, then we have additional steps. If not, we can go on to question number 2. Question number 2 says, what two numbers multiply to get C and add to get B? So remember, multiplying to get C is that constant, adding to get B, that's that middle term. So we're going to factor each of these examples completely. So looking at number 1, okay, is there a number in the spot of A other than 1? The answer is no. So then we can go on to factoring, okay? So what I like to do is I like to organize my thinking by drawing a little X. It's not required, it's just an organization tool. So we want to figure out what we can multiply to get the last number, which is 7. So we want to multiply to get C. And then those same two numbers are going to add to give us that middle number, which is in the spot of B. Multiply to get 7. Add to get 8. So the only two numbers we can multiply to get 7 would be 1 and 7. And those two numbers, when we add them, 1 plus 7 is 8. So that's our factors. Now, because there's no number or there's only a 1 in front of the x squared, we can go ahead and factor. You will always start with x times x because x times x is x squared. And then you're going to add in the two numbers we just found, which is a positive 1 and a positive 7, and that is fully factored. Okay, so let's do a couple more. So here we go. Again, I like to organize my thinking by putting in x. We want to multiply to get the last number, which is 10, and then we want to add to get the middle number, which is negative 11. So multiply to get a positive 10, but when we add those same numbers, we're getting a negative. So if I'm multiplying to get a positive, but when I add I get a negative, that means that both of my signs are going to be negative. And I can multiply negative 10 times negative 1 and get negative 10. Or sorry, positive 10 because a negative times a negative is positive, but when I add them, it becomes negative 11. So we can go ahead and factor. Again, there's only a 1 in front of the x squared, so we're good. So then we have x, and then we list in our factors negative 10 and negative 1. And this would be completely factored. Okay. Next one. Ask yourself, is there a number in front of the the x squared? No. Okay, so then we can go into what numbers can we get to multiply to give us negative 90 this time. And those same two numbers are going to add to give us a positive 1. So when we multiply to get a negative number, that means one of my numbers is going to be negative and one of my numbers is going to be positive. Okay, so let's talk about what can we multiply to get 90. Negative 90. We can do 1 and 90, and we can do, negative 1 and 90, and then we can do 1 and negative 90. Okay, but when we add those together, we're not going to get 1. So those are not going to be two numbers we pick. We can do 2 and 45, make one of them negative, and then when you write it the second time, the other one switches to negative. But again, when we add those together, we're not going to get a positive 1. So really, we want to think about what numbers are really close to each other that allows us to get a positive 1. Okay, we can keep going through the list on and on and on, but eventually we're going to get to -9 and 10 and +9 and -10. Now, one of these combos gives you a +1. One of these combos gives you a -1. We want the +1. So we want to make sure that our 10 is positive. And so now we can go to factor, which is x minus 9 and x plus 10. Okay, so now something that I want to point out based on the 3 examples we've done. Notice that example 1 and example 2, this last term right here was positive. And notice that our signs in the parentheses are the same and they match the first sign. So since this right here is a positive, these two are positive. Since this was a negative, these two are negative. But when that last sign is negative, our signs are different. Since our signs are different, okay, you're trying to think the bigger number needs to be positive, which is why the 10 was positive. So if you had to think about that, how would that change or affect our answer here? Are our signs going to be the same? Are they going to be different? What is going to be the sign of the bigger number? Take an educated guess and let's see if you're right. So here we go. Again, we ask yourself, is there a number in the A spot other than 1? The answer is no. So we can go straight to organizing our thinking, where the last number goes on top, the middle number goes on bottom. We want to multiply to get a -12, add to get a -4. So we can multiply 1 times -12 and -1 times 12, but those are not going to give us 4 when we add them or subtract them. Okay, we could do 2 times -6 or -2 times +6. Now when we do this, one way gives us a -4, one way gives us a +4. We want the -4, so that would be this combination right here. And so that allows us to go straight into the factoring. So we have x and x, and then we have +2 and -6. So was your educated guess correct? Okay, if you said because this is negative, our signs would be different, you were correct. If you said that your bigger number would be negative because this right here was negative, you were also correct. That's just a little tip and trick to help you. Okay, now when we look at the next one, notice when we ask yourself, is there a number in the spot of A that other than 1? The answer is yes. So since there's a number in that spot, now we have to do an additional step. So in this case, notice that all 3 of my numbers are divisible by 2. So we can factor out a 2, which is like us just dividing each term by 2. So when we do that, 2x squared divided by 2 is just x squared. 2x divided by 2 is just 1x. -4 divided by 2 is -2. And so now we can focus on factoring this inside piece, and this 2 is just going to tag along each step. So our final answer will have the 2, and then now it will have a set of parentheses. So now we re-ask ourselves, is there a number in front of our x squared other than 1? The answer is no, so we can go into factoring. So when we go into factoring, our last number, that -2, is going to go on top. Our middle number, which is a +1, is going to go on bottom. We're going to ask ourselves, what can we multiply to get a -2, add to get a +1? Because we're multiplying to get a negative, our signs will be opposite. So the only thing we can multiply to get 2 is 1 and negative 2 and negative 1 and positive 2. We want to get a positive 1, which means we need the bigger number to be positive. So we're going to have negative 1, positive 2. So we have x and x. Then we have our minus 1 and our positive 2. Looking at the last example, pause the video, see if you're able to do it, and then check back in. So here we go. We have a number in front of our x squared that's not 1, but again, we were lucky that all 3 terms are divisible by that number. That is not always the case, and that's when we'll have to do additional stuff that we'll talk about later in the school year. So here we go. 4x squared divided by 4 is x squared. Negative 4x divided by 4 is just a negative x. And negative 8 divided by 4 is a negative 2. So now there's no number in front of our x squared. We can go into our factoring. So we want to multiply to get a negative 2, add to get a negative 1, which this sounds familiar because we just had it over here, except now we want a negative on bottom, which means we're just going to pick the opposite numbers that we didn't use prior. So 1 and negative 2. And so when we go into factor, don't forget that greatest common factor goes out in front. To get x squared, we do x times x. Then we have a plus 1 and a minus 2. And now we have it completely factored. So this is just a quick review of factoring. If you have any questions, make sure you ask me in class.